And
okay, I think that we are live.
cool. Good evening, everyone.
Hi, everyone. We are joined this evening. I'm really excited for this live. Not that I don't get excited about working with Sam every single week, but I'm particularly excited about this one because David's joining us. And I shared a post in the group a little bit earlier today just to kind of set the scene to say how this has come about. And David wrote a post that I saw on Facebook, which I absolutely loved. Like everything in that post, I was like, yes, it totally resonates. So I reached out, connected, invited David into a conversation, shared what I loved about the post. Sam and I had that conversation with David, and now here we are. So is there anything you want to add, David, about like who you are and a bit of an introduction, or do you want to just get into that?
No, I just want to say thank you, Lisa, and to you, Sam, as well, for inviting me. Actually, it's a real pleasure to be here. And what I got from what you just said, you said I saw something he wrote and I really liked it, so I connected and we had a conversation. And here we are. And it just sounded so simple as a process to start to create a relationship. And from my experience, like receiving the message from you saying, "Hey, love that. Do you want to have a conversation?" It just felt natural. And we were talking before we went kind of live about a lot of coaches tend to struggle with this whole connection piece and make it kind of a bigger thing than it actually is. But it really isn't. And this actually in this present moment is kind of testament to that. Because I don't know you two from Adam really, apart from a few Facebook conversations. But here we are, and we've now got the start of a relationship happening, and we're live in your group serving other people. So yeah, that's what came up. Sorry.
It's funny that you share that, because that was the thought that went through my mind when I was writing the post as well, like copying the post that you'd written and saying this is how it came about. And it was like, hell, this is the same process. It's just that building relationships, that connection, that invitation, isn't it? That's it. It doesn't need to be any more complicated than that.
No, exactly. The worst I could have said would have been no for now, or no, or just ignored you. That would be literally the worst thing that could happen. Yeah.
So you actually did the very opposite of that. So I don't know if this is going to embarrass you, but I'm one of those coaches that's like just in service mode. So hopefully this is going to be okay.
We'll find out soon.
Hold on to your seat, David. Anything could happen at this point.
Anything, yeah.
I kind of want to highlight like what happened behind the scenes as well is that after that initial conversation and we'd had a few email exchanges and we got the conversation set up, you sent both Sam and I a copy of your book. Look, there it is. Where's that?
There's the advert. Bring it on, Sam.
You can pay me later.
With a personal message. I don't mind over there. I can't go and get it.
Where's yours, Lisa?
Which I thought was really cool. Like when we talk to coaches about service and client astonishment, it's like you didn't need to do that. So we're asking you for something, and you've gone above and beyond already before you're even here in this room. So that just feels relevant to share as well.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad it touched you both, and it's just felt really natural. We're going to obviously have an interview conversation. I thought it might be useful for you to have a copy of Where's Dad, and also I really just appreciate my people who are willing to kind of reach out and ask for what they want. Because once again, a lot of people kind of fall over that piece. You know, I've got a couple of young children, and 6 and 9, and they have no issue at all ever asking me for this, for that, for this, for that. You know, all the time. And somewhere along the way, we get lost in our own mindset and our own thoughts as adults, and we put all these stories and these fears in between us actually just reaching out naturally and connecting with another human being. So I'm glad it helped.
Yeah. And the thing that I remember about the conversation initially that we had, you asked, what do you want for the coaches in your group from this? Like what would be helpful for them? And the thing that came to me was a feeling of freedom So we've kind of touched on that a little bit, but just a feeling of freedom to be able to connect, to be able to serve without themselves on their mind. And that for me would feel pretty transformational if even one person in this group heard something that had them be able to drop a lot of the noise and be so free to start and to take the next step and to keep going.
So you both know the people inside your group better than I do. You've obviously got a relationship going with everyone in there. So what do you think some of the common obstacles people face are when they're looking to reach out to others? What's the kind of things you hear from the group members?
I think the most... Sorry, Lisa, go for it.
Just before Sam answers, we have got some people watching, so I just want to put the invitation out to, like, if this is you, we're speaking to you, like, let us know what's coming up for you, what's getting in your way, what's stopping you. Let us know, and I can put the questions to you, to David. So please do get involved. Yeah. Sorry, Sam.
No, not at all. Actually, that's a good shout, because who better to answer that question than the people that you were asking, right? I think something that we see a lot is, and something I know I've experienced, is like that feeling of rejection, of somebody saying no, like taking it really personally. It's like, what does that mean about me? And there's some fear wrapped up there for a lot of people, I think. And certainly personally, I've experienced that. And still, I've got to be honest, actually, I still kind of get it now occasionally. If it's somebody that, I don't know, it could be anybody, but say I see them as massively more successful than me, or somebody I've never spoken to before, whatever that looks like. And it's just beginning of a conversation. Sometimes that thought crops up. It doesn't stop me, but it does crop up. So I think that's probably something that I see quite a bit.
Not being good enough is the other big one. Who am I? People knew me as something else. Now what? All of a sudden I'm a coach. I can just be like, hey, I'm the expert here too. So I think a little bit of the imposter syndrome and the who am I, not being ready, plays a part as well.
Yeah, I've experienced all those and more, and they still crop up from time to time, actually. And the correlating factor between what you both said and what I've shared there briefly is the focus isn't on other, it's on self. So we're stuck in our own kind of thoughts about, how is this potentially going to impact us, our ego, how we perceive ourselves? Are we going to think of ourselves as a failure or not being good enough? And that makes it very kind of foggy and misty in our own minds. And before you know it, all those thoughts start to, literally stop us from taking an action just to connect with someone or send them a book, because we're making it all about us. So one of the things that I find, and I think I shared this with you last time, you both know this. I know you're both fans of The Prosperous Coach, and I've had the pleasure of working with both Rich Litvin and Steve Chandler. Switching that kind of focus of attention on from self to other is probably the one tip I encourage every single person to consider, to really slow down and just live in that inquiry. Well, how is me reaching out to this person potentially going to help them? Or what could I send them that would be meaningful to them? Say, for example, you're on social media and there's someone who's cropped upon your feed, maybe from a few years ago in a different career, or an old friend, and you see they've got a certain hobby or pastime, or there's something they've mentioned that resonates with you, and you can genuinely connect with them over that and send them something that is going to be useful to that. For example, it could be a book, it could be a blog, it could be a YouTube video, and just connect with an open heart of curiosity with a focus on being of service to them versus worrying too much about how we're going to be perceived. It's very hard. It's very hard to worry about yourself if you're truly looking at how you can help another person.
Are you, David, when you do that, are you able to not have it be about client creation, right? Like, where's the balance between I have a business and I need to create clients? It doesn't need to be this particular person, but I need to create clients for my business to be successful. And reaching out, not attached to that becoming a client creation activity, if you see what I mean. It's like, how do you navigate that space of, I want to be in service, and it's not about creating clients, but it kind of is about creating clients?
Yes, that's a really good question. And the truth is, we're all about creating clients, because as coaches, we know if we create clients, people's lives transform. And we also get served ourselves when we can provide for our own lives and our families. We have families, and the more successful we are as coaches, the bigger our reach can become. So it's definitely an interesting thing to look at. I think it comes with practice, Lisa, really, and actually slowing everything down. I'll give you an example fresh from today, or yesterday and today. I've intentionally the last, say, year or so started to be talking more about working with coaches, because I love, like you guys do, love coaches. They just get coaching, right? Having worked for many years with coaches, but mainly with ambitious business owners. And I had an old client reach out to me who stopped me 4 years ago when I was an E-Myth business coach. And he stopped 4 years ago. We kept in touch. Every year we'd have a conversation or two. And he said, whenever I'm ready, I'll reach back out to you. And he reached out on Sunday, having read an email that I'd written on my newsletter list for coaches about client creation. And he said, I'm kind of ready, want to get started. And and not sure if you're the right person, because I see your positioning has changed. Would you be open to a conversation? And straight away, the reaction is, great client, there's one in the bag. That's a bit of low hanging fruit. And that's something I couldn't control. That just came from within me, because I own a business, right? And this guy is warm, if you like. He's an ex-client. He knows how I work. But I slowed it down, I thought about it. And so let's have a conversation. We had a half an hour conversation today. And I asked him what he wanted to create, what outcome he wanted. And he started talking about wanting to systematize his business, which I used to do with people. And I still can do. I've still got the skills and knowledge to do it. And create an operations manual, and so he can be freed up to focus in his zone of genius to develop the business and sell and get to this revenue number. And I'm in my body listening to this guy. I'm going, I could lie here. I could lie here and try and create a client for the cash. But it just didn't feel right. I'd spent a day slowing myself down. And I said, you know what? I said, I can help you. I said, but it wouldn't be good for you or for me. I said, I can help you in these areas of working out who you really are, what it is that really drives you, and creating an inspiring vision for your life. And then you can take that to someone else. So, but I know loads of coaches who live and breathe systems. And he was a bit dumbfounded, because most people, when they enter into a sales conversation, they're always looking at people as targets of opportunity to feather their own nest or to create revenue in your own business. But the truth is that there's a new level of trust that's been created and safety between me and that person now. He knows that I've got his best interests at heart. He might choose to do some work with me on the deep stuff, or he might not. But either way, who knows when he runs into a coach who's saying, God, I wish I had more clients. Who's the first person he's going to think of? And that's because I didn't make it about me wanting to create clients in the short term. I made it about what's the place I want to come from. What's the space I want to be and to come from in this present moment with this person here? What help does he really need? And am I the right person? So it's a slowing down and once again, refocusing on the other person. Because I know if I could have created the client, but it would have been manipulative, out of integrity with me about who I really want to work with, and wouldn't have served either of us. But I'm not a new coach, right? So I'm a bit further down the line. So for new coaches with that dichotomy, I think it comes down to having a level of clarity around what it is you love to coach, what specific areas you love to coach, and having like an inner certainty, knowing that you can make a difference in someone's life, and asking questions of the other person to find out if they fit inside your zone of genius. And if they don't, just own it and be honest and point them in the right direction. But if they do, be okay with that and serve them deeply, and they're probably going to have a better chance of becoming a client.
I love that.
Did that answer your question? Did that make sense?
It's
I can't even remember what the question was, but it was a great answer.
Was it? Yeah, thank you. Wow.
question. No, it doesn't make sense. And what occurred to me was it's almost like when you're a new coach, every single person in front of you feels like, God damn it, I've worked so hard to get here. I need this person to say yes, right? It's like we put so much emphasis on that person in front of us. And the more we can see around the opportunity that is there for us, right? If this person's a no or a no for now or not quite the right fit, if you're being honest with yourself, they're not the right fit for you. Knowing there's a whole ton of people that I can connect with next gives you a little bit more freedom to do that, rather than to be like, can I somehow make this fit into my mold? Could I maybe do some work with them on this, but not this? So I think there's something in there as well. I don't know if you would agree with that in terms of how to make it easier to let that person go if they're not quite the right fit.
Yeah, I mean, there's nearly 8 billion people on the planet, so there's always more people to talk to. But it goes back to what we started the conversation on in terms of connection. You know, if you're committed to continuously connecting with people and being in a conversation, you're going to have a far better of creating clients if you're in 100 conversations versus 10. It's just a numbers game, really, and working out who's a potential client, who's not a potential client. And people, we all know this, you know, and people, if they're watching this live or watch this on the replay, you know, if you walk into a shop or a car showroom, you know whether the person is desperate for a sale or not. You can smell it. And even if you really want the dress or the pair of jeans or the car, you're probably going to be moved away from the brand if that person's in your face and they're trying a bit too hard. But the people, and I speak for myself, the people who I love buying off, the people who just like, yeah, just have a look round. You know, how can I help? You got any questions? And there's a level of comfort they've got in their own skin. And so I think practicing having a level of comfort in your own skin and knowing that you are enough, and by being yourself, just the fact you've chosen to be a coach, actually, you're already one of the kind of game changers in the world who wants to make a real positive impact in the universe. Really owning that and showing up from that place with a level of comfort can really, really help when it comes to connecting and enrollment calls and selling coaching.
Can you remember, I mean, I'm sure you can, but can you remember what it was like when you first started out coaching? And because obviously you've been through, like we all have, you've been through a process, you've been through some experiences to bring you to this point and this understanding, right? This knowing. Can you remember what it was like? And maybe some of the mistakes, right? Because let's be honest, we're not really mistakes, but we've all done things that now looking back later, I probably wouldn't do that again. You know?
Yeah.
Can you remember what it was like as that new coach and how you kind of got to see these things and what you had to go through to see it?
Terrifying. Fear-inducing, sweaty, tongue-tied. What's wrong with me? I'm broken. I can't do this. Why would anyone talk to me, let alone buy coach? All those sort of things would come through, right? So, and practice helps, right? Practice beats perfection every single time. But if I look back at when I first started coaching, all the kind of mistakes that I made, and I started off coaching professionally when I was an e-myth business coach, and they would provide me with sales scripts to try and help people hit certain emotional benchmarks from point 1 to point 2 to point 3 to get them to buy coaching. And I look at the mentoring I had and the calls people would listen to and give me advice about, they said the wrong thing there and you asked the wrong question there. And it all boiled down to me trying to be someone I'm not. Me trying to fit myself into a container of someone who I thought I needed to be in order to be a good coach or to be able to sell coaching. So the first thing I think is goes back to the level of comfort in your own skin, just trusting yourself, trusting your own inner wisdom and showing up as you, because you don't want someone buying from you if you're not being yourself, number one, and not putting pressure on yourself to get it perfect and make it right. And we were talking before we started this live, Sam, about we both share we used to have like Post-it notes around our screen. stuck with sellotape. Unless I shared a secret there, Sam. Sorry, but I did. I can't speak for Sam.
That's how my whole career is built on Post-it notes.
I would have like insightful questions all around my computer screen with the post notes and the sticky tape in case the post notes failed. And I'd be on enrollment calls or trying to create clients, and I'd be so focused on looking at all the questions and thinking, what question can I ask that's going to give them a deep experience that they buy from me? And so they think I'm smart and clever and really, really bright, right? Because if they think I'm insightful, they'll buy from me. This is where the blog post came from. And someone would share something like, I'm finding it really difficult with communicating with my partner. I'm not quite sure what to say. And I'd say, so tell me about business. How's business? What would you love to create that you haven't got now? Because I'd seen a question over there.
That will get them.
It worked one time for someone else, or I'd heard from some podcast or some thought leader. And the person would be like, and I was so kind of transfixed in my own word with getting it right and trying to be insightful that I completely missed the opportunity to say, well, what do you mean by you find it hard to communicate with your partner? Because I wasn't present. And that's the second piece. Show up as yourself as best you can, right? And be as present as you can, because everything that you need to know about what the person who is in front of you is challenged with will be in the answers to your questions. And trust yourself to find the right questions in the moment versus trying to make it about you and come across as being insightful. And this is why I wrote that piece, because there's a lot of people out there who are kind of very prominent, and they pride themselves on pushing you have to take people deep, and you have to be insightful, and you have to give them a life-changing conversation. That happens sometimes, but also many times it doesn't. And be okay with that. 'Cause you don't have to be insightful because you think it's the right thing to do. The best thing you can do is just show up as yourself and be really present and connect kind of heart to heart with a person, and just see if you can help them with somewhere in their life where they're stuck.
Yeah, I love it. I love what you said there about be as present as you can be. Because there's such a black and white thing around, I'm either present or I'm not, or, am I being myself or I'm not? It's like, it's kind of like saying, do your best and just go do it anyway, and just see what happens. Like, I love that. It just takes that weight off. First time I heard that when I was a new coach, that just took that heavy backpack off. It's just like, okay, I can just show up and do my best. Perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I might share with you I had a conversation with an 82-year-old coach a few years back, a guy who's a real genius when it comes to the Enneagram, because I'm fascinated with human behavior and psychology and spirituality. And the Enneagram is a really, really cool tool, actually, to understand more about how humans work. It's not the only tool, but it's a really great tool, been around for a long while. And I was talking to this coach about some personal challenges about kind of how I was perceived when I was with clients or with people, and coming across the right way, not saying the wrong thing. And he said, when you walk into a bar and you walk in and there's loads of people there you don't know, and you're quite conscious of whether you look smart, or your hair's in line, or your shoes clean. He's a bit of an old boy, so polish shoes back in those days. And I said, yeah. He said, can I tell you a secret? I said, yeah. What's the secret? He said, they don't give a beep about you or how you look or how you come across. They've got their own beep to worry about. I'm allowed to swear, by the way, or not? Is it?
Of course you are. Go nuts.
They don't give a shit about you, what you're thinking. Yeah. All they care about is their own shit. How they're coming across. And it's the same in a conversation, a connection conversation, or own conversation. People aren't really worried about whether you think you're coming across okay. They just really care about their own stuff and whether you can help them with it or not. That's what it boils down to.
And I want to add as well to what you were saying about sometimes you have life-changing conversations and sometimes you don't. And the truth is, well, this is the truth according to me. We never know whether it was life-changing or not. And Sam and I were just talking, we've both experienced recently messages out of the blue from people who have known us years ago that have said, X, Y, and Z, this happened because of you. This happened because of the conversation we had. So you just never know the impact that you're having. You really don't. And the ripple effect that it can have in a person's life over time. which is pretty cool, I think, that we get to be in a job like that.
Yeah, it really is. And, you know, who in their life has someone they can go to for half an hour? Let's say you're connecting with someone having a rom conversation, who's going to let you speak for 80 to 90% of the time and just pour out what's really going on in your world, as, you know, best you can, given the safety and the trust. Not many people have that in their life. So just showing up and being a container to receive whatever they got to share is often in the category of life-changing, because people feel heard and seen, like they're not being heard and seen in their life. So just doing that, if you were to turn up and just do that, you're already making a difference in that person's life.
I love the way that you frame that. There's something that I would say in the way that you said that about, like, who in their life has that space where they can just talk openly, freely. Right? No one. Friends don't let you do that. They listen to respond. They want to talk about, yeah, me too. Like, no one. And I've heard that put in so many ways, like listening to a lamppost would be helpful, talking to a lamppost would be helpful, or,
yes, yeah.
you know, like that space is really helpful. But I've never, something as I was listening to you just then really landed with me. I heard that differently this time than ever before. Yeah.
Oh, that's really, really cool. And you picked up something really beautiful there. You said, you know, even friends don't listen because they're on about, what about me too? And because this is just my take on it, because we're used to conversing in that way, where we're trying to be seen in our social lives or our professional lives or familial lives, you know, when someone says, I climbed Kilimanjaro, you say, oh yeah, I did that. And I then went over to here, and, you know, lacking a bit of presence and really hearing the person, that seeps into the connection, the enrollment calls. So the trick I find is to stop it when it's about here. You know, let the thought kind of come and process. And if they say, I'm really struggling with X in my life, versus you saying, yeah, I know how that feels. You just got to stop it when it's there and just go, mm-hmm. Tell me more. What do you mean? And you're flipping it from you to them again. And that's the game, from you to them, all the time. Because you're not in a social context or a family context. You're in a professional coaching context where, you know, if they feel really seen and heard and understood and you can help them, there's a much higher percentage of probability they're going to look to want to work with you as a coach.
I'm keeping my eye on, we've got some comments. So Helen was saying that, to go back to one of the initial questions, it's rejection, like what stops us. It's rejection based on price and investment, uncomfortable, feeling like I'm selling my coaching service. Rebecca's saying she loves your honesty, David. And she's obviously not been terrified enough, or perhaps practiced enough in previous iterations. Or maybe you've just hit the nail on the head. Showing up as fully me isn't so scary and somehow makes it less scary.
Cool. Was there a question there from the first person? There's a sense of...
Helen was talking about rejection based on price and investment, and feeling uncomfortable selling her services.
Yeah, one thing that might be useful there is if you assume you have something that's not going to transform their life, it can feel like selling. But if you kind of go into the conversation empty, but also with the assumption, actually, I've got something that can really potentially help you here, let's explore together. It's more of an exploration versus if you don't buy what I have, I'm crap. Like Sam said at the start of the conversation, if you can try and separate it being a personal attack on you if someone says no, well, you collapse those two together. And if they say no, or no for now, or I don't want to buy your coaching, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It means that they can't see the value for themselves at the moment in investing in coaching. That's it. And that could be on them. It could be on you. We're not digging around in certain areas. It might just not be the right time. So that can sometimes help when you think about this perception of being rejected. And it goes back to a practice and a numbers game. And if you're connecting and in conversation, you'll learn how to truly be of service to people. Whereas if you're only one or two conversations a week or a month, there's a lot of pressure we put on ourselves as coaches to get this one in the bag, otherwise I'm a failure. Does that make sense?
It does. I was going to ask, I'm conscious of your time as well, David, so I'll ask, like,
I'm actually okay for a bit longer. You're okay.
Is there a trick? Let's say, you know, you're psyched up and you're doing it and you're out there and you're connecting and you're having conversations, but you're getting a lot of no's, right? You're getting a lot of resistance. And maybe in the early days, you're not really skilled enough at the moment, right? It's an art, you practice, like being comfortable with exploring the objections. And I know there's people who are like, okay, it's a no, and out the door, right? And not comfortable to continue coaching. Like, is there a trick there to help people feel more at ease again, maybe having more of an exploratory conversation about some of those objections, or a trick to being able to navigate the no's, not take them so personally, and kind of and move on to the next person rather than spending a lot of time ruminating and dwelling on that?
There isn't really a trick or a hack, because every conversation is different, but I can share what tends to work quite well with people that I work with and myself, is that, and I think this sometimes comes from a bit of a misinterpretation from what coaching is, and certainly the prosperous coach. You know, take them deeper than they've ever been, give them a life-changing conversation, you know, give them experience of you. That's all great, but the only reason people part with their hard-earned cash is if they see that investment is going to help support what they value most in life. It's going to help them get a specific outcome that they can't get anywhere else. So one of the things that can be really useful is to become adept at asking slightly better questions about what the person wants to achieve through coaching.
Does that involve using Post-it notes?
So, yeah, exactly, yeah.
It works a treat.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So how can I help? What do you want to create in life that's different to what you have now? Why is that important to you? What would that give you that you haven't got now? And you'll end up with a reason or a couple of reasons and you'll feel it in the call where they go, God, if that could happen, that would be life-changing. And it then makes the sales process much easier if you're both very, very clear about what the person wants to create through a coaching relationship. Because people pay for outcomes. They don't pay for deep conversations. They pay for outcomes. So I haven't got a trick, but I would just say learn to work out what it is the person really, really wants. And if you're sure you can help the person create the outcome and it's realistic, own it. Say, well, that seems entirely possible. Why do you think you couldn't create that? And, you know, just explore around that area there. Because then it makes sense. It takes it from being a heartful, open conversation with someone to actually, there's actually a real benefit to me as the potential client to working with this person that's going to impact my life in different ways. I can see it now. It's not conceptual. It's like I can really get it. That would change everything for me. And that's when people will pay.
So have you found then, as you've kind of got more experience in coaching, that the more you do in that space with the client, the more you really do help them see what's on offer here, the less money objections, time objections, partner objections actually even surface as well?
Yeah, totally. Because we have the perception as coaches sometimes that we think we're in control of the sales process. We're not. The only reason people will pay is if they see a benefit to their values of their life through working with you, helping them get something quicker, faster, and easier working with you than on their own. And it'll often be the thing they consistently stubbing their toe against in life. They always come up against it again and again. And if they can see you as the vehicle to help them overcome that, money doesn't really come into it as much. But it's your job to facilitate their exploration into that for themselves. It's not your job to sell them the benefits of coaching. They have to discover that themselves based on what they want to create.
It's like
Is that making sense?
It really, really makes sense. And it does to me anyway. And that's all that matters. So, no, it does. And I think what I'm really hearing in what you're saying as well, David, is there's this real, and you can see it in you as you're talking, there's this real sense of slowing down, being where we're at. You know, when we're, because what Helen was saying there was really interesting. It resonated with me in the early days, but uncomfortable about selling coaching service, and what Matt said about rejection based on pricing and investment. We're already stages ahead of where we're actually at. And if we're in a conversation with somebody, have it be about the conversation. Just that's all.
Right.
Yeah, it's where you get that from you. It's cool.
Steve Chandler said to me years ago, he said, imagine yourself as a machine where a client puts, and he said dollars because he's American, he said they put $1 in, it goes in the machine, the coaching process, and they get $2 out. And every dollar they put in, they get $2 out. If you can help someone see that through the enrollment process, they're probably going to buy your services. But often we get a bit scared. I know I used to get scared about even exploring what the value of coaching might be to the person. But you can ask that. So, I mean, would that have a benefit to you financially or emotionally or spiritually or with your relationships or with your health? And then you'll find stuff that has a real value that they've tried to solve themselves for years and years, and they've read books and been to webinars, listened to podcasts, they've not quite cracked the code. And if you find what that thing is, just in a gentle, open-hearted exploration together, it starts to make sense. The machine starts to appear. Oh, right. So if I put this pound in here and I get £2 out working with you, it doesn't have to be more complex than that. And insights might, to bring it back to the blog you mentioned, start the recording, Lisa, or the live. In that exploration, you might have an insight that emerges inside you where you might go, I've got to share this with a person. And you can just say, something's come up that I think could be really powerful. Are you open if I share this? Are you open to receiving? And you can share it, and it can be a really amazing organic insight that just appears. Or it might land like a slap around the face with a wet fish. And either is okay, right? Yeah. But it's coming from a place of not putting pressure on yourself to force an insight. It's just an emergence of something. And it's often the case as well, people that you think are dead certs to buy coaching will also say no. That's just part of the process. I got a no last week from someone who I was like, this is ideal client. It's going to be easy. They're going to just buy the services, warm lead, referral. And it was a flat no. And I'm thinking, what did I do wrong? And what I did wrong is I went in with the expectation that they were a yes. So even someone like me who's been doing coaching for many, many years, there's still elementary things that I forget sometimes in enrollment, to slow it down and just connect with the person, find out what they want and have that exploration.
I love some of the language that you've used as well. Like, it feels really freeing to me to say, explore, just explore, discover. You know, it's not, you have to know all the answers for your client and you have to get the answers out of your client. It's not that. It's light and it's light.
Yeah, if you're trying to make like an impression on someone as well, you know, if you're trying to come across as insightful, be bright and be a powerful coach, it's quite abusive trying to, you know, force yourself onto someone. But if you imagine it as, you know, going around to their house for a cup of tea around their kitchen table and going around the same, you know, side of the kitchen table, a couple of stools, a cup of tea and a couple of biscuits, and looking at their life on the table and going, how's this bit going? Okay, well, that seems okay. That's okay. What do you think that is? You know, just looking at it together in a light and joyful way, and exploring, especially in initial conversations, that can be really useful. And if you find something, then you might go, well, let's actually have a coaching session on that. Let's dive in together so you can experience how I work. You know, and the trust is being built, and that they feel safe, and they're going to really tell you what's going on. And I didn't know this when I first started out, so you know, I'm fully conscious that many people here are kind of newish coaches. But this skill, if you can start to practice this now, it will accelerate your process no end in client creation. It doesn't have to be overly complex.
It's that word, isn't it? Practice.
Yes.
Just practice. Like, yeah, there is no such thing as getting it right and wrong in practicing.
Yeah, life is just one big feedback mechanism. You know, you can only control your way of being and how you show up So if you go back to being yourself, if you show up as yourself and you know yourself really well and you say, well, I'm going to commit to just being me, that's easy. If you're trying to be a powerful, insightful coach because you've heard someone say this question and try and force that into the prospect, that's a whole charade that's going to exhaust you. It might work from time to time, but it's going to be knackering.
Yeah, it feels heavy. Tim's given us some feedback. He's put £1 in, £2 out. I like that. That doesn't mean they pay you £1 for the consultation and you give them £2 on the way out.
No, I don't think so. No, that's where I'm going wrong. Damn.
That's cool. Last chance if anyone has any questions. Sam, do you have anything else that you...
I don't actually. I was going to put it to David and say, is there anything that you feel like, based on the conversation we're having, that newish coaches would benefit from knowing that we haven't already said?
I think what comes to mind is, being a coach and trying to make a career as a full-time coach can be really challenging, right? And it's very easy for someone to say, go all in and just give it your best shot and keep going. But when you're sitting there in your office or your laptop on your kitchen table or somewhere, trying to make it work, especially with the context of COVID, and nothing's working, nothing's landing, it can become very isolating, very, very lonely, very scary. And you can start to then lose the ability to really believe in yourself and lose confidence. And then you start to get needy and start to worry about how you're going to come across. Am I doing it right or wrong? So I think the one piece of advice I would give is that anyone listening to this, you're obviously very lucky to be involved in a group with Lisa and Sam. And I would use the group as an area and a place to practice vulnerability and in a really safe spot, and to actually share some of the challenges that you're having with the community and get feedback from Lisa and Sam, because then you're not going to be lonely. Then you're going to be able to take elements of what Lisa and Sam share with you, practice them, get more feedback, report back to the group, and use the community to help you not feel so alone. So I think that would be probably the best piece of advice I can give, given the context of this conversation.
It's great advice. Nothing to do with our group. What I mean by that is it's great advice just because people often don't realize how lonely entrepreneurship can feel. Mm-hmm. And very fixated on the freedom it's going to bring and the lifestyle it's going to bring. And then in the hard light of day, it's like, holy, I have a lot of space in my calendar and no one to help me here. So I love that you touched on that. Thank you.
Yeah. It's great. I commend you guys for creating a group and providing a place for coaches to hang out and to share what's going on and to support and guide them, because just being in the group, you're going to accelerate quicker. But they can only help you if you ask questions and tell them where you're stuck, really. So
beautiful. Thank you very much. Really, really appreciate your time, David. It's been a pleasure. How do people get in touch with you if they want to connect more?
The best place is either Facebook or my website. Website is davidfoster.coach. And you can go there and get the first 5 chapters of Where's Dad as a free download. And that's a great book that helps people understand more about how coaching works. So it's a fictional tale about an overwhelmed business owner who meets a coach. So there's stuff in there about enrollment that would be quite useful. Or hook me up on Facebook or hook up with me. What's the cool way? So what do the kids say?
I think you've just lost the cool bit, to be honest.
My dadness is coming through now. Please connect with me. No, I'm on Facebook. Just connect with my personal profile, and that's pretty much it, I think. I'm not on Instagram or Twitter, I don't think. Perhaps I should be.
You don't think? If you
No.
are, it's a fake account. Don't connect with that one.
You're so famous, there's fake accounts.
Is that? Brilliant.
We will leave it there. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me on. Hope it was useful.